Am I audible, guys?
Yes,
Yes,
Vijay, we can.
audio.
Okay, great.
Yes, yes,
And are you able to see my screen?
yes.
Okay, that's great.
Yes, we are able to see.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Okay, so my name is Vijay, and welcome to the Azure demo session. This basically demo session which covers basically what Azure is and what cloud computing is. First, before discussing what Azure is, we'll quickly go through some of the basic components of cloud computing, and then we'll look at what Azure is and some of the important concepts or components around Azure, right? So these are the things that which will be covered as a part of this demo. That's one. And before we move ahead, quickly about myself, my name is Vijay, with around 10 plus years of experience in various infrastructure areas, including server administration and application virtualization on Citrix and Azure as well. So currently I'm working as an IT architect for one of the company. So that's something in brief about myself. Okay. So let's quickly move on. What exactly a cloud is and so on, right? So the first question that before we start is we need to understand what exactly a cloud is. Can anybody tell in this group what exactly a cloud is? So anybody just give me the definition or what you understand about cloud, what exactly it is. Just you may unmute yourself and then answer.
Hi Vijay, this is Mohan.
Yeah, Mahan.
So cloud computing is nothing but providing a infrastructure support remotely apart from all over the world.
Okay, providing infrastructure support remotely. Okay. What else? Anybody else has got any other definitions? Anybody know what exactly a cloud computing is?
Computer service
Yeah, it
over the
over.
internet is called cloud computing.
Sorry, please repeat it.
Computer services over the internet is called cloud services.
Okay, computer services over the internet. Okay. What else?
It is. Yeah, this is Jay Kumar. It is something that is kind of that overcomes the limitation of scalability, and then it is something that can be metered, so pay per use. So how much ever you are going to use, you're going to pay only for that. And also, it is scalable infrastructure so that it overcomes in case you're running a data center of yourself. You are limited to only the infrastructure that is there on your data center. But now with cloud computing and the vendors who provide the cloud computing services, this limitation of limited infrastructure is broken, and then it's highly scalable.
Okay, so absolutely right. So whatever you guys had just told, those definitions are in line with what exactly the cloud computing is. So let us quickly go and see what exactly a cloud computing is and how exactly the organizations define them. Now, if you see all these definitions, I did pick the top three, one from Wikipedia, the other one from Azure portal itself, and the other one from Amazon. Now, the basic and common features that whatever any cloud computing service should have is they should be kind of should be available in the service provider data center, which means that you don't manage them. Your service provider will manage them. And number two, they are scalable, which means that as and when you need any resources, you have to scale up the resources as per your requirement. So there should not be any limitation as such. Now, what are those services that which you can get? Is it only infrastructure, or can I get any other services, right? So it's not just an infrastructure. So there are other components around that. It can be a storage, it can be an application, and so on, right? And so on. So these are the resources, and they are available in the data center of your service provider. And the other characteristic feature, or the other characters that a cloud computing should have, is the pay as you go model, which means you pay for what you use. Today I'm using a server of 10 GB, I'll only pay for that, right? So if you put all these points together, so the common points that what we need to understand when it comes to the cloud computing is, the common points that what we need to understand about cloud computing is, A, it is services that which are available over the internet, and all the services reside in the data center of your service provider. B, and these are all scalable, which means that there should not be a limitation as such when we start using the resources. And 3, they should be available globally, which means the resources that whatever you want or you are using should be available in different geographical locations, and they're all interconnected with a very high speed network, which means that low latency and high speed and high available and reliable network, right? So, and all these resources that what you use, you will be using on your own. What it means is you are not dependent on somebody else, which means that a self-service delivery, right? So today, if I want to use a cloud, I just get into a portal and provision the resources that whatever I want, and then I'm on my own, right? So these are the few important characteristics, and all this information that whatever we just discussed is part of this particular definitions that what we see, right? Now if you see all these 3 definitions, I'm not going to read all these things, but all these things are in common, right? So that's what a cloud is. Of course, whatever the definitions that what we just heard about each one of you, or three of you, they're all absolutely in line with what we see here, right? Let's quickly move on and see what are those characteristics. Now there is an institute called National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is a body which defines or tells how exactly certain products should like and what should be like, and what are the characteristics of those component or whatever. When it comes to the cloud, NIST says here are the 5 different characteristics any product which is called as cloud should have, right? Now let us briefly discuss about these things. First one is rapid elasticity, which means that the scalability, which means that the scale out or scale in of the resources, right? So as you use, you go and scale out, which means that you add additional resources and so on, and you don't need, that means you can bring them down, right? There should not be any limitation as such. That is called rapid elasticity. The second one is on-demand self-service, right? What it means is you are on your own. You will be provided with a portal or some GUI or a command line interface, or you can code some using some languages by getting the SDKs related to that cloud, right? So if you talk about Azure has got their own portal. We call it as Azure portal, and they got PowerShell, they got ARM templates, and they got Azure CLI. And of course, you can use, if you are a .NET developer, you can use Visual Studio .NET. And if you are a Ruby or Python developer, then you can download their SDKs and start developing your own infrastructure code, or application code on the servers, on the applications that whatever you are going to use. Now what here they are trying to say is you are not relying on anybody else to provision your resources, right? So that is on demand self-service. And the third one is measured service. Somebody was saying pay as you go, right? Now pay as you go is one of the model, but there are other models as well. You can go with an enterprise agreement where you get very good discounts with Azure, and you can also go with 3-year for 5 years agreement with the Azure itself. You still get good discounts when compared to the other normal what do you call it as payment methods, right? So measured service is a service where you pay for what you use, and your billing and everything will be shown to you resource wise. Again, resource wise on a minute basis. Azure charges on minute basis, right? So your calculation will be on minute basis, and then you pay for what you are using, right? So that is measured service. The other important aspect that which you get when you use cloud or any cloud service should have is the resource pooling. Now we all know the services that what we use on the cloud will reside in a data center. And this data center will have multiple servers and multiple storage devices and network devices and so on. And you have this pool of resources readily available for the customers. And these pool of resources are shared by multiple customers. Of course, there will be an isolation between each tenant or the customer, whoever is using the services, but you have a pool of resources readily available across different geographical locations to readily go and use, right? That is pool of resources or resource pooling. So what is the advantage you get when you use the resource pooling is you have the resources available. It's easy for you to attain the elasticity, right? So that's the advantage that which you get, right? To move on, the broad network access itself. Another important aspect of the cloud. What does a broad network access means? Let us take an example. You have your presence in different geographical locations. In the traditional computing world, you need to set up your data center and then make sure that you have connectivity, which means that you have to go to the service provider, internet service provider, and get required bandwidth and so on. Now, let us say if you are the 100% cloud enabled organization, which means that you are using the network services of your cloud service provider, which is more reliable and with a high availability and with good bandwidth, which is again spread across different geographical locations across the globe, which we'll be seeing how many geographical locations, how many regions and so on as we move on. But you are getting very good network access, broad network access, which means that high availability is guaranteed, right? So you relying on your service provider for getting the bandwidth of the network that whatever you need, you are utilizing the service provider network bandwidth or network whatever is set up, right? So that is the another characteristic of a cloud. So anything that which we call it as cloud, it can be it can be an application, it can be a compute, it can be anything for that matter. And any service provider who is serving the cloud services should have all these things in their solution. Then only we can call that as a cloud, right? So this is just to get an understanding, what are those features and characteristics that which a cloud should have, right? Let us move on. Now, what is that we are going to get? Now, why should I use cloud? I mean, what are those advantages that which my organization will get if I start using cloud, right? The first one is cost, right? Anything that which we look at in the present world is what is that how much I am going to save, right? So on those lines, when we talk about the infrastructure, there are two types of expenses generally we put in, right? One is the capital expense. I think you guys might know about it. And the second one is the operational expense, right? The cost expense, capital expense is nothing but you put, you spend something to procure, your infrastructure, which means if you are not in the cloud world, then what will happen is if you are running a project and then you should start getting the server storage devices and so on to have that setup done, right? But when you move to the cloud services, you are avoiding procurement of the physical hardware and procurement of the storage and network devices and so on, right? You have something readily available, which means that there is a significant reduction in the capital expenses, correct? And the second one is the operational expenses itself, which we use, which we incur when which we incur to have the support in place for the infrastructure that which we are going to use, which means that the day-to-day operations and the patching and firmware updates and then maintenance and so on, right? So that is the operational expense. Now, if you move to the cloud, you can reduce both of these to a maximum extent. Of course, you still need the operational expenses, but there can be, or there will be, a significant reduction in that, because few of the layers within that infrastructure as service or platform as service, there will be things that which you will not be taking care of, right? And there are some automation solutions which are available readily within the cloud, which we can use, which significantly or further reduces your cost, right? Now that is the benefit that which you get when we talk about cost. So you are reducing your operational and you are reducing your capital expenses, right? Now that is the first benefit. The second benefit is the speed. The speed means here it could be the speed of the resources or the performance of the resources that we anyway will be covering, that which you can get on the cloud, or the speed with which you can get the things done. I am not dependent on somebody else. In this previous slide, we had seen the self on-demand self-service, right? So which means that the greater speed of getting the things done, which means that you are not relying on operating system or your vendor to get and rack, stack and patch your servers and then install OS and then install the application and so on. That wait time is gone, right? So that is the second benefit. When the wait time is gone, that means maximum productivity, right? So you are utilizing your resources. If you are into management, that means that you want your resource utilization 100%. There should not be a wait time, or you don't want your resource sitting idle. That means that when you have the speed, that means you have maximum productivity around that. And the fourth one is the performance. Because you have the resource pooling and you have rapid elasticity, what you are attaining here is better performance of your applications. And as and when you need, you go and you are increasing your resources. Let us say that you are a retail, you are into retail business and you are into sale, and on a normal day you need only 10 web servers, but on sale you need 50 web servers, right? That time you can go and increase your resources, which is nothing but rapid elasticity, and you will get better performance. But when you compare this solution in the traditional world, you have to sit and provision the machines and add those machines to your web pool or web server pool, and then you have to start using it. But in cloud, you have a solution called as virtual machine scale set, and you provision an image, and from that image you deploy the web servers, and you write a condition, right? Okay, if the utilization of CPU is 90% on these servers, then you go and additional 5 servers to this pool, and system will take care of that, which means that you are attaining better performance by putting right controls and right solutions in place, right? So that's way you can get the additional resources as and when want, and you can also add additional servers as per your requirement to attain better performance at compute level or the services that which you provide to your customers, right? So that is the performance. Another important aspect is the global scale, the advantage that which you get. Now, if you compare this with your traditional world, now I am today, let us say my business in India, I am expanding it to US, UK and different regions, let us say 2 regions, US and UK. Then what do I need to do? I need to set up my data center there, right? And then I need to manage the compliance part and regulatory requirements of that particular region. And then I have to make sure that I have the servers purchased and set up the data center and so on. Now, how is that it is helpful when you move to cloud? Because you have the presence in different regions across the globe and complying the regulatory requirements of that particular region. That is another very important aspect, right? So if you are in UK, the cloud services that what you are getting within the UK region are complying with the regulatory requirements of that particular region, and so on with US. So you are not putting, as an organization, you are not putting much effort in meeting or in getting those things done, right? And the second thing is you are doing things with ease. What it means is you are not spending so much of time in setting up the data centers and so on. You have a solution readily available. You can spin your VMs or applications, whatever are needed in that particular region, right? Now that is the advantage or the benefit you get within the cloud, because their presence is across the globe, right? That is a global scale. And the last one is the security. So many questions on the security on cloud, right? So people will talk, is my data safe? Financial organizations are still hesitant to go and put their servers or data on cloud, and they prefer going more with their own private cloud. That's what most of the times we are seeing. But what we need to understand is it is secured enough, at least at the cloud platform level, and they have their own clearances from various security organizations. You can go and look at Azure or AWS and so on to see what are those I mean example like ISO standards and some security standards, top security governance bodies clearing their services. But you are still responsible managing the security of your own infrastructure. Like let us say you are spinning your VMs and so on, and application and so on. You as an organization are responsible for managing the security at that layer. But when it comes to the cloud, they have enough controls to make sure that there is enough security around the cloud stack or anything that which sits below that, right? So that is the security, right? So these are the benefits that which you get when you go with cloud computing, right? So characteristics and then benefits. Let us quickly move on. I'll give some time after this to take some questions if you have any. Let's move on with the other slide. Now, who is competing with whom in this world, in this arena of cloud computing, right? As we all know, AWS is the one who started first, and they are leading the market space. And Azure is giving very good, very tough competition, and they have their own positive things. Of course, see, if you there are people who will ask, okay, which one is the best? Is it AWS? Is it Azure? Is it GCP? Which cloud is the best cloud in the world? And what is that I need to go on with? Pros and cons um, are there for each and every cloud, right? Now, if you talk about Azure, you get the best thing that which you get. You are already got a subscription advantage, or you have a subscription agreement. Then you get very good discounts, right? And the other thing that what you get is you have already licenses of some of the products, Microsoft products. Then you get advantage there. And you want to use some Microsoft services like Active Directory services, which is available as a service on Azure. That is an advantage, right? So it depends on what solution I am looking for, and go and look at different solutions available at different vendors, and then take a call which one is best for me. As I said, though this covers the Azure part, as I said, every cloud has their own pros and cons. Azure is very good at hybrid cloud, which means that integration of the on-prem and your cloud solutions and so on. There are certain advantages that which you get here, which are not that much in AWS. But when you talk about AWS, it is a matured model, which because they have their presence at quite some time. So advantages, disadvantages, and so on. But again, we have, at the end of the day, we have to sit and see what is that I need, how much I am saving, and how much advantage I am going to get if I am using my existing subscription with Microsoft and so on, right? So those are the advantages. But to talk, here are the list of companies which are competing. Alibaba and GCP has almost equal market share. HP, IBM, and so on, their presence is mostly into private and hybrid cloud solutions, right? And so on, the other small cloud service providers, right? Right. So we had seen benefits. We had seen who is competing with whom, and let us quickly look at what are the different types of clouds you have. and you might already know all these things. Just for the formality sake, I did put this in case if somebody doesn't know, then let us cover that. Okay, the first one is a private cloud, and second one is public, and third one is hybrid cloud. Let us first discuss about the public cloud. The cloud that which we use most of the time, where the services are available in the data center of the service provider, and you don't manage anything, which means that the underlying infrastructure, storage, and data center management is not done by you. Everything is taken care by your service provider itself. That we call it as public cloud. Exact opposite to that, you have a cloud solution in place, but the management of that is done by the organization itself. So you can have your own cloud, or you can go and get it from any service provider. There are service providers who are selling the private cloud as well, right? So you are still responsible for managing the entire infrastructure that which lies below the cloud stack, or anything that which sits on top of it, which means it is almost similar to your traditional computing world, but the only thing is you have some cloud services or cloud stack on top of the infrastructure. That is a private cloud. The hybrid cloud, if you are an organization and you got your presence in both of them, then we can call it as hybrid cloud, right? So this diagram will tell you like what exactly it is, right? You can see the intersection part, which has the organization which has presence in both public and private cloud, then we call it as hybrid cloud, right? In cloud, everything you get as a service. I go and purchase a storage of 1 TB, that I'll get as a service. I need a database instance for my application. I go and spin a database instance, that is also a service. I'm using Office 365 on cloud, that is also a service, right? So whatever you purchase from any of the vendor or any of this cloud service provider, you get everything as a service, right? Now, the services that what we get on or from the cloud can be categorized into different services, right? So major ones are listed here on this table. And of course, you have the other services as well. There are something called as database as service, or storage as service, backup as service, and so on. But what I did is I did just put only 3 of them here, and a comparison with the traditional management or the services, that whatever we call it as, and which layer is managed by whom. This table gives us a kind of high level understanding of what services are managed by whom in what service, right? Now there are different services. As I said, one is the top one is infrastructure as service, platform as service, and software as service. These are the categorization of the services within the cloud. Now, whereas if you see the stack, the table right from the network layer till to the application layer, right? Now all these layers, right from the network and the application layer, if you are going to a traditional data center management, you are managing on your own. That means you have a support team to support all these things, and you are spending money to get the physical hardware, storage, network, hypervisor, and so on, which means that right from this entire stack, right from the network layer to the application layer, is managed by the organization itself. That's how it was earlier, right? But when you move to infrastructure as service, where you get VMs provisioned, and on top of the VMs you put your application, right? So that is infrastructure as well. So I get a compute. On that compute, I put my application or data, whatever is needed. Now, what is that the service provider is managing, right? You can see the below 4 layers: network, storage, physical servers, and hypervisor. Hypervisor is a small piece of software or the OS that which sits on your physical hardware, which will allow you to spin multiple virtual machines. So that is a hypervisor, right? So right from the hypervisor, and this hypervisor will sit on a physical server, and this physical server will be connected to your storage and network, and this entire layer is managed by your service provider. But what is that if I am responsible for, I still have to go and spin a VM with an operating system on top of it. If I am using that for some application, I am still responsible for the application middleware and data and runtime that which sits on the operating system itself. So you are reducing a few layers within this management stack, but still I am responsible for managing the part that which sits on top of the hypervisor. So any outage in the hypervisor level or physical server level, storage level is taken care by your service provider. They will make sure that your servers are available 100% or 99.99% of SLA, right? That is infrastructure as service. We'll discuss, when will I go with what, but let us quickly understand the services. Second one is platform as service. Now I need a database instance. Let us take an example of database. I need a SQL database instance. Now earlier what I used to do is I have to provision OS and then install database and then create a database instance on top of it, right? Now in platform as service, you have that as a service itself. You can just go and spin a database instance itself rather spinning the entire OS and so on. Or let us say you need a web app, right? You want to host a website. You can just go and create a instance of that. That means you are in platform as service, you are getting as an application as service, right? So the application which sits on top of that, on top of the operating system, you are not responsible of managing that. And you are not even responsible of installing the application itself. So what is that you are doing? I am going and using the existing application and making sure that I am taking the services that whatever I need, because the application is already installed and is managed by your service provider. So let us talk about the SQL itself. I use the SQL database instance, but I'm not worried about the patching of your SQL application itself, the availability of the operating system on which my SQL server resides. And the physical hardware availability is also I'm not worried. So the only two layers I'll take care about is the application and the configuration around that and the data that which is related to that application, right? That is platform as service. And the last one is software as service. Very easy, no headache. Office 365 is best example, right? So or GoToMeeting, that whatever we are using right now for this meeting, another example. So likewise, you can categorize the applications into different services. Now the question comes, boss, which service suits me and where do I need to go and put, and why, how do I make sure that I'm using the right service? The first thing that what you should be doing is you need to know what is that you need, and then go and check whether it is available as a service, application as a service, or platform as service, or is available as a software as service. Then start using it. If it is not available as a service, let us say that there is an inbuilt application, which means that when I say inbuilt, organization, your own in-house application, we call it as in-house applications, right? So let us say your organization has developed your own applications. Obviously, that will not be there in your cloud as a service. That time you have to go with, infrastructure as service. You have an Oracle application on-prem and you want to migrate it to cloud, and that is available as a service in platform, then you can use that. There is no need of you going with infrastructure as service. Sometimes few organizations want to have exact replica how exactly it is on-prem, though you have the service available as a platform. That's up to you as an organization. Later you can move that into a service. So it is a business model, it's your requirement, and it depends on the services availability on the cloud, right? Now this is about cloud services, right? So the same thing that what you see here. So I'll pause here and I'll leave a forum open. If you have any questions, we can quickly discuss and then we move on. You can unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any. Okay, so if no questions, we'll move. Let us get into the exact course content itself, course what we are covering, right? Azure. Now, what is an Azure? As I said, it is a cloud service provider. And what is that it provides? It provides you a freedom to build, manage, and deploy the applications or servers globally. And what do you have? And you have right framework, you have right tools to do all those things. That is the definition of Microsoft what an Azure is. And again, this is what we discussed, right? Build using some tools, which means that self-service delivery and so on, right? So presence globally, right? Global presence and self-deployment and so on with better network and other stuff, right? That's what an Azure is. We had discussed this part, so I'm not going to put much time here. Now, when did they start? They start in the year 2010 as Windows Azure, and they renamed it to Microsoft Azure. Their presence across different geographical locations. When you compare with their competitors, Azure has their presence in in 54 regions, which is high in number when compared to any of its competitors. Let us quickly go and see what are those geographies that which Azure's presence is, right? Let me quickly open a web browser. Right, so this is from the Microsoft portal itself. So they have 54 regions and which is spread across 140 countries. So this is the presence across the globe. Of course, there are few regions, if you can see, the ones that which are dotted circle, which means that they are announced but not in production yet. But when you go and look at the circle, which is a filled circle, then you can see their presence in major parts of the world across different geographical locations. So Azure, we can divide their presence into categories called as regions, geographies, and then we can further divide that into availability zones. Let us quickly discuss what these are. A geography will have multiple regions, right? So what is a geography? Americas is a geography. Europe is a geography. Asia Pacific is a geography, right? Middle East and Africa is a geography. They have 4 geographies. And each geography has multiple regions, right? A region will have a group of data centers with connectivity between them. And each region, if you see this diagram towards the right side on the web portal, each region will have multiple availability zones. And each availability zone will have multiple data centers, right? So that's how the structure of their data centers are. So geographies, within geographies you have regions, within region you have availability zones. Availability zones can be replicated. If you want a high availability solution, you can go with multiple availability zones for your DR and other thing, but that will be an additional cost for the organization. So use availability zone for resiliency and high availability, right? Now a region will have multiple availability zones. Availability zones will have data centers, and each data center will have an independent power, independent network connectivity, and independent cooling, which means that even if one data center in the availability zone is not available, you have another data center which will provide or cater your requirements and make sure that we are providing the high availability solution, right? So this is Azure regions and geographies. Now, as we are here on this portal, I quickly want to show something else as well. Let us quickly get into this geographies itself. You can see it. There's America's geography. Within that you have regions, multiple regions listed over here, right? And what is available in each region and so on, right? The same with Europe, the same with APAC, and then Middle East. Now if you go little bit, locations, this will give you which region is in which location, right? Now if you talk about East US, it is in East US. You have two, East US 2 and East US. They are located in Virginia. And South Central US, the data centers are located in Texas and so on, right? Now if you talk about uh, Asia, right? Asia Pacific. If it's the India, it is in Pune, Chennai, and Mumbai, right? West India, South India, and Central India, and so on, right? So this how their presence is listed here. Now, one important thing that which we need to understand is products by region. Not every product is available in every region, right? So you need to go and look at the product that what I am looking is available in the region that which I want to put it on. Now, if you have a multi-tier application, you need to make sure that all tiers are sitting in the same region, right? Now, that time you need to go and validate and check if the applications part of each tier are in the same region. Otherwise, you may end up in not having a particular, tier or an application instance in one of the region. Then you may have to look for some other alternate options. But as I said, not every application or every service is available in every region, right? So this is about Azure, regions, geographies, and then locations and their presence. Okay. Now let us quickly move ahead with something else. Now we are saying that we get services from the cloud, and where do I find those list of apps or list of services they are selling, right? Now, if you go to a restaurant, they'll give you a menu where it tells that, here are the list of items which are available for you to go and order, right? Similarly, what is that you have an Azure to understand what are those services that which I can purchase or I can use on the cloud, right? There's something called as marketplace, right? Azure Marketplace, we call it as. Azure Marketplace is a single location where you can go and look at for the service that which you are looking, right? So if you need a Linux virtual machine, then you can go and look at whether it is available or not. Let us say you are in need of Red Hat or something else, or a SUSE Linux or a Windows 2012 2019 operating system or an Oracle database instance. Then you go and search yourself here in the marketplace, and you can also get the price around that and start using it. And if you are a developer and you develop your own application and you want to sell it on Azure, then you have an option here, right? You can publish your own services on the Azure Marketplace. Of course, there will be some validations and so on, but you can still go and publish your own applications and sell it as a service on the cloud, right? So Azure Marketplace is a location where you can get, or you will get, the list of services available and the list of applications that which are available on the Azure on the Azure portal itself. And all these things you see when you get into your Azure portal itself, and all these are available in the Azure portal for you to go and provision and start using them, right? So these are the different services that which you will get here. And the other important thing that which I want to show is Azure Calculator. So this will give you a basic understanding what will be the cost or estimate of my products that which I am going to use. If you are using a virtual machine of so and so size and so on, you can get a cost estimate. Of course, this might change based on the agreement that which you have with the Microsoft. If you are already a gold customer or platinum customer, you may get a very good discount. Or if you are going with a 3-year or 5-year commitment with Microsoft, saying that, okay, I'm going to go and use your services for 5 years, and then there will be further reduction in the overall cost of the price that what you get. So it's worth of looking at the calculator as well, right? So these are the services, geographies, and then a marketplace, right? Now let us quickly move on to understand. Now, how do I access these services that whatever I see here? and how do I use them? How do I use that for my market, for my organization, right? Now, as I said, there are multiple ways of accessing these cloud solutions. One is through portal, the other one is through command line, and third one is using some development tools, right? Azure provides a portal called as portal.azure.com, where you can go and start using the services that what you want to use, right? This is the Azure portal. In this Azure portal, you will see the list of resources here, right? If you go to all services, whatever you had seen in the marketplace are available here, right? So let us say you want a database, or you want some AI solution, or you are a DevOps into DevOps, and then your DevOps projects and other stuff. Or if you're an infrastructure guy, you get compute here to provision the virtual machines and so on. Or if you're a network, if you want some networking stuff, you can go with gateways, load balancers, traffic managers, or routers, and so on, firewalls, and so on, right? So based on your requirement, you go and use whatever the things that which you see here are also available here, right? You can go and search here Oracle. Let us say that I need Oracle database instance. Let us go with general and type it Oracle, right? Or I can also go and type here. Right, you can see all the services that whatever you are here available within the Oracle on the marketplace, right? So likewise, whatever the services you are in need of, you can go and start using them, right? Now, if you are a student or you want to learn something, then before we get into it, we need to subscribe ourselves to the Azure, right? So if you are an organization, you are subscribing yourself, then you get based on the subscription that what you get, you will get into the subscription model and the cost model and so on, right? Now, if I am a student and I want to use this for my practice and other thing, then you get something called as trial version, right? You get a trial subscription. Now, this trial subscription you will get for 30 days, or you, along with 30 days, you will get 13,300 rupees INR credit, right? Which means you can use resources till you spend all your 13,000 rupees, and that 13,000 rupees you will be spending within 30 days. Otherwise, after 30 days, you are not spending this amount, that will get lapsed, right? So what you need to do is just go and subscribe yourself. You can just Google it saying that Azure trial subscription, and then you can go and subscribe yourself with free trial subscription, right? That's how you can get into the free model. Once you are done with the free trial subscription, then you have to convert that into pay as you go, right? If you see my subscription details, that this is pay as you go because my free trial subscription is over, and pay as you go will be billed monthly, right? So my last billing cycle is done. Now it's showing 0.21 INR. That's what the charges for this particular cycle so far, right? Now, so if you are practicing, we'll show you how do you get the subscription done and all those things, but you should not worry about the labs and other stuff. You can go and subscribe yourself to Azure. And what is that I need to subscribe? I need a credit card, and I need a mobile number. I need a PAN card if you are in India. I'm not sure what it will ask if you are in US and different geographical locations, and email address and name, right? So once you have, it's very straightforward subscription. You can go and subscribe yourself and start using the services, right? Now this is how you can go and use free trial subscription. Let us quickly move on and see how do we quickly spin up a resource within the Azure portal itself. For this demo, I just want to show you how do we spin a virtual machine using Azure portal. Let us say that you want to have a virtual machine that which you want to use for your project. Then how do we go and spin it, right? Now, as I said, this is the portal from which you can get most of the things done, and you can also do it using your PowerShell CLI and other stuff which we will be looking in our course in detail. but I'll go to virtual machines here and I'll have an option to add, or I can also go to the search and type virtual machines, which will take me to the same location, right? Now let us say that you have a requirement to spin a Windows 2016 operating system, right? So you have these resources readily available and you can go and start using them from here, right? Now, before you spin or use any resource in Azure, there are certain things that which are needed. One is subscription. As I said, subscription tells where the billing should be, which means one account can have multiple subscriptions. Let us say I am an infrastructure guy and there are 10 projects and I want to bill to those 10 separate projects differently. That means I can have 10 different subscriptions, which means based on the subscription only to that part of the project the billing will happen, right? That's the reason subscription is very important. We'll discuss in detail what subscription is, but for this class we just understand a subscription is a place which basically defines, or a setting which basically defines where the billing should go, right? That is subscription. This is mandatory field. Any resource which you create on Azure should have a subscription. The second thing that what you need is a resource group. What is a resource group? A group of resources. Any item that which you create on Azure is called resource. It can be a network interface card, it can be a disk, it can be a public IP address, it can be a virtual machine, whatever you create, a database instance, anything you create on Azure, we call it as resource, right? Resource. And each resource will be part of one resource group. A resource group defines or helps you to categorize the resource based on certain category. It can be your project name, it can be dev prod, pre-prod kind of thing, and so on. Now, before you create any resource, which means that before I create a virtual machine, which is called as a resource, I need to go and have a resource group in place. And you can compare a resource group as a folder, right? You create a folder with a name and you put all the items based on the category or the name of the folder that which you gave, right? Similarly, a resource group. Now, apart from the subscription resource group, the third mandatory field that which we need to understand is the location. When we say location, region or geographical location. What it means is, where is that your resource sit? Whether it sit in APAC geography, if it in APAC, which region? Is it in South India, West India, Central India? Or if it is US, is it Central US? Different geographical locations and regions you have. And based on your project requirement, you go and put that resource in a specific region or geographical location. Okay. Now, these are the three mandatory fields. These are the common entries or common items that which you will come across any resource that which you create within Azure. Okay. Let us quickly go and create a resource group first before creating a virtual machine, right? Okay. Let us see where the resource group is. So towards your left side, there's an option called resource group here, or you can also go and put that in a search box to get a resource group itself. Just type resource group, it will give you an option. There is an add button here. Let us click on add and it will give you an option. This we call it as blade, right? In Azure, we call it as blade. Now this blade will allow you to put data related to your group creation, resource group creation. Like every group, like every resource will have a name, your resource group also got a name, right? So I'll put that as demo resource group. Now, where this resource group should be in, right? As I said, there are different regions. In which region this resource group is, right? Is it in Europe? Is it in Asia, and so on? I'll put this in Central US. I'll put this in Central US. Okay. Now click on create and review, right? Create. I'm not going to discuss about tags, which we will be discussing in our course. And you see here a notification bell where you see the status of the resource that which you are provisioning, right? Now, if there is a problem, then you can see the details here. If it is successful, you can see that it is success and so on, right? So you created a resource group, right? This is a resource group. Now this resource group will have the resources, and because we don't have resources here, you can see that blank. We haven't put any resource in this resource group, right? Let us jump back to the virtual machine itself, which we are going to look as a part of this demo. Let us click on add. So what I'm doing, I'm creating a virtual machine. Now this virtual machine should be built to some subscription because I have only one subscription. That's the reason it picked only pay as you go. And you also have a resource group which you need to select. If you have 10 resource group, all these 10 resource groups are listed here, right? Now for this demo, what is the resource group we created? We created a demo resource group. That's the reason I am selecting that. If you don't have, you can create it from here as well. You can see create new option, right? And you have a name. Let us say that the VM name. This VM name, that what you give is just to help you to identify the virtual machine name. And this will be the name of your host as well once you provision it. And this VM should sit in which geographical location? Most of the times it should be in the same location where your resource group should be, right? It is central US. Of course, you can put it in a different geographical location also, but we'll try to put it in the same geographical location. Now, what is the operating system that which you want to put on this image? Is it Linux? Is it Windows? If it is Windows, what operating system you have, right? If your image, what you are looking is not available here, you can click on browse all images. You will be listed with other images as well. It's basically an OS image which will help to provision the virtual machine. That's all. I am installing a Windows 2016 data center. I'll go and select 2016. Right? And very important part is the size. Now you define the VM name, you define the operating system, but what is the size of the VM? How much CPU I need? How much memory I need? Right? What is the storage I need? What is the IOP speed of the storage? All these things come in the size of the VM. Now, before you go and provision the VM, when you plan itself, you decide what is the size of the VM that which you should go with, right? Now that's where you have the size here defined. There are multiple sizes, like what it selected is standard DSV2. Now if you need a different size, then you can go and click on change size, where it will give you the list of different predefined sizes that which are available, right? Now this we'll be discussing in detail in our course. I'm not going to discuss much here, but what I'm trying to say here is, based on your requirement, you go and select the VM size that which you want. And again, there are multiple types of VMs and they are categorized into families. When we talk about the family of VMs, whether it is a general purpose, whether it is a storage optimized, where you will get more optimum performance of your storage. If your application is need more writes more to your storage, means reads and writes to the storage is more, then you go with storage optimized. Or memory optimized, then if your app or the OS needs more memory, then you go with memory optimized. There are multiple categories within this, right? Now based on your requirement, the cost will also change. If you see it, it is 5,000 rupees per month if you are going with this VM, and so on. Based on the standard of the VM that which you select, the number of CPUs and memory will change, and based on that, cost will also vary, right? Now let us say I need B1MS. I'll go and select this, right? So what it gives me a 1 virtual CPU and 2 GB of memory for this machine, right? And if you move on, if it is a Linux machine, you need a root access, right? You'll go and put username, root, and password. If it is Windows machine, then you put as administrator. Let us say it will accept the administrator username or not. No, because it is a reserved word, right? So you cannot use guest, administrator, or inbuilt root. Those usernames you cannot use it. So let me use my name, Vijay, and the password, it should be complex. Right, username, password. Now what are the ports that which should be opened for this VM? Because I use RDP to access it over the internet, I need 3389, which is the RDP port that which should be enabled, right? Now this is the inbound port. We'll be discussing about ports and all those things, but just for this lab we need an RDP port which is 3389, and we are enabling that inbound port so that we have access to this virtual machine. Save money. So this is where we were saying about the advantage that which you go with Azure, right? Now if you already have a license, you are saving up to 49%, right? If you don't have license, then because I don't have license, then I'll go and say no, right? This is the first blade. Now these are the different items that which you need to fill, right? The next one is disk. What is the disk type that which you want to assign, right? You have multiple types of disks, and each disk has their own advantage and performance benefits. Standard SSD is the best performance with high performance and best high availability and other stuff, right? So we'll go with standard, and there are other disk types also, standard SSD and standard HDD and so on. Standard HDD, you can think of it if you don't need better performance and you're archiving some data and so on, right? But we'll go with standard SSD. This is the OS disk. And if you want to add additional disk, you can do it from here, right? Data disk, you can see an option here, right? For this demo, I'm not going to use that. We'll just stick with the premium SSD. Networking. There are two options here that which we need to understand. One is virtual network and the second one is subnet. Virtual network, you can think it as like a network boundary. Every machine or every resource should have or will be part of a network boundary, which we call it as subnet, which we call it as virtual network. Okay. Now each virtual network will have a subnet, and subnet defines the IP range that which a VM should get. When you have 10.x.x, which means that your virtual machine is getting an IP address in 10. region, 10. What you call address space, right? Now, do I need a public IP address for this? Yes, I need, because I am accessing it over the internet. Likewise, you have multiple other options, like you need diagnosis. Boot diagnosis, we'll enable it if we need it. We'll be seeing that in our course, how do we use the boot diagnosis for troubleshooting and all the other stuff. But these are all needed, right? If your OS is not booting, then it is useful for you to understand what exactly is happening, right? That is boot diagnostics. And guest OS diagnostics, right? Understanding different events and so on, right? So this is the management. There is something called as extensions, which is very useful option when you are doing some post-build activities, right? Now, if you are an infrastructure guy, a server management guy, after OS is built, you will perform certain activities, installation of some tools, hardening of your operating system by some settings, right? Or you want to install a backup agent, or you want to install a chef or puppet agent, or there is something called as a desired state configuration, which basically makes sure that your OS is in the same way how it is based on the settings that which you define, right? That is desired state configuration. Or you want to run a script after OS built. All these things you can do it in the extensions, which we will be covering in our course, right? So how do we do that and all the other stuff? This is the advantage. Tags, categorization, and then the last one is review and create, right? Now, if you see it in our earlier discussion, I was saying it will charge an hourly basis and minute basis. What you see here is the hourly basis, how much it will be. If I use this virtual machine for 1 minute, 1 hour, then I have to pay around 2 rupees to Microsoft. And all the settings that whatever you had provided are visible here. right? Let us go and create the resource. Now this will take a couple of minutes for spinning, and you can see, different, what do you call it as, notifications here. These notifications will help us to understand what is the state of your virtual machine, right? Once it is done, you'll see a notification here saying that the resource is provisioned successfully, right? So while this gets provisioned, I'll just want to hear if you guys have any questions. We'll take. Otherwise, we'll quickly look at the course content by the time this gets provisioned.
Hey, does this course included with load balancing and network as well?
Right. Yeah. So we do have load balancing, and we discuss about the networking concepts like virtual VNets, subnets, a load balancer, traffic management, site-to-site configuration, which means that integration of your on-prem network to your Azure, and this also includes a theory on express route, because that we will not be able to cover in our the labs, because that is a procurement that which we need to go and purchase, right? So and then you also have DNS and other networking components. Yes, what you said, what you asked are covered as a part of this training.
Okay.
You can see here virtual networks, peering routing, network security groups, which are your firewalls, right? And Azure load balancer, and then a traffic manager, point to site and express route. Yeah, you are asking something.
Yeah, this Rao, what is certification paths? Are you covering any certification paths? And can you give some introduction about what paths we have in Azure?
Yeah, so this course basically covers a certification called AZ103, right? So this is administration 1. Okay, so earlier we used to have two certifications, AZ100 and 101, which is now combined into a single certification, which is 103 from May 1st onwards, right? So the course that whatever we are covering will cover AZ103, and if an architect, there is another certification called AZ300, AZ300, and most of the content which are here will be part of that. But again, there are a couple of other items that which we need to understand when we are going with AZ300. Specifically, some development related stuff is also covered in AZ300. But for this course, what we will be covering is AZ103. Whatever the content you have here covers AZ103 certification course.
Which covers DevOps?
DevOps, there is I think it's 103, I think so, 102 or 103 that covers 102. I think 102 is the one which covers the DevOps one. I'm not much into DevOps. I'm sorry for that. But AZ 103 is for infrastructure, that covers the infrastructure certification, and AZ 300 will cover your architect related certification.
Okay,
yes, so,
okay, great. Got it. I think 1G3 is more of system admin related and infrastructure management. 300 is advanced with covering architecture of the
architecture
Azure.
That do have little bit of your development as well, because when you are an architect, you should be looking at at a wider perspective, right? So that's the reason they, based on the role, they design these certifications. So 300 covers little bit of understanding the service bus and all those stuff will also be part of your 300.
Can you write directly 300 without getting into 103?
Yes, you can write it. If you are an architect, if you want, you are pursuing architect role, you can directly go and write 300 without writing 103. But you definitely should have knowledge of 103, at least knowledge perspective. All the items which are part of 103 are also there in 300, which means that you are expected to have 103 knowledge to clear 300.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Is this course content completely based on this certification course content, or it will includes any more also?
Okay, so this course content, whatever we put here is at a high level, which means that I didn't put, the minute levels like subscriptions and so on, so on. But whatever we see here in the course will be in line with your course, will be in line with your Azure AZ103, what do you call it, a certification content, which means that it covers all the topics that whatever you have in the certification path. If you go and download that, it's available openly. Then yeah, this covers most of them. And if there is anything that which you want in specific, then we can also think of that. That should not be a problem. If anything is missing and you want that to be included, we can include that. That should not be a problem.
Okay, got it.
Hi, Vijay. This is Anil.
Yeah, Neil.
Yeah, while creating VMs, can we use our company standard OS?
Yes. So what there is
Uh,
an option called as yeah, you can do it. Yes,
okay.
we can do it. There is an option here. Let me show you. You create a base image, right? How it happens is you create a base image, and that image, that base OS, you convert it into an image, right? And then you use our image or template, we call it, as if you are from VMware world or some
Yeah, correct.
infrastructure world. So here you see an option called capture. Now this option, what it does is the OS that which you created will be converted into a image, right? And during the creation of VM, we selected image whichever is available, right? And there was an option called browse all, correct? And that
Yeah.
browse all, when you go there, you will see your custom image. If you convert this image into a template, that you can do it. So from that
So,
image, you can custom image, you can deploy multiple VMs
yeah,
using
because every company has their own SOPs, right? So based on
right,
that, they will
right,
create. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Thank you.
right, right. Yeah, that can be done. So the capture option, what you see here is for that.
Yeah. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Do we
Okay,
can
please.
able to customize the resource like RAM, CPU, as
Yes.
there are
So yeah.
option in predefined. So apart from that, can we customize it?
Now, what I feel is the different options that which you have here are the will help you to get what you need. That's what I observed. But if you say that if the size is not available here and I want to have my own custom size, I don't think there is an option here. So we will be using the sizes whatever are defined here, and based on the sizes, the charges are predefined, right? So there is no option as such, but based on the number of sizes that which are available, right? So you definitely will find some, you have 102 different sizes if you see it, right? And then you definitely have uh, at least something that which is around your requirement. So there should not be a problem. But to answer your question straight, there is no option as such. You will be
Oh,
using the existing sizes that which are defined here.
okay, okay.
But what I feel is these sizes will definitely help you to get to the size that which you want. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so you can see the status of this VM. It is running, which means that it is deployed, and the only thing that what you need to do is just click on connect, and then you see two IPs here. One is from the public, which is 40.113.266.112 if you're connecting from internet. And again, for lab purpose, we are using this, but production, not every machine will have a public IP address, right? So most of the things will be on private IP address, and you will have a gem box to connect to that, right? So this is because this is a lab. So we what do? We just went ahead and created a what do you call it as a public IP address. Now you can straight away go and download this and start using the RDP file that which you downloaded. It says Okay, RDP is not commonly used by. Let me open this. Give me a minute. Or if you don't want to download it, you can just go and mstsc and directly put the IP address. That can also be done, right? So 40.113.266.226.122, right? So it takes straight away take you to the access part. Okay. So that's how we can provision and access. We'll be discussing in detail about all these things. This is what I have today for this demo. If you guys have any further questions, we can take. Otherwise, I am done. Okay, so if you still have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you still have any questions that which you want to ask, you can come through, Lakshmi or the Career IT Solutions. That can also be answered. So if you still have any questions, you can ask, guys. Otherwise, we are done.
Hey, Vijay, this is Chakri. So I'm a basically database guy. So I'm looking like we have on-prem systems, so we are planning to migrate the on-prem to the Azure. So the only thing I'm expecting, like, so do you going to are you going to see show me like how the migration will happen from on-prem to the Azure cloud? So my expectation, I think I would get some sort of knowledge on migrations, how to do that from on-prem to the cloud. Are we going to cover that?
Yes, we are going to cover it. We are going to cover that in um, the backup and recovery and site recovery and migrations, right? So you can see it, right? So in the migrations, we will be seeing different migration methodologies. What are the best practices? And there is something called as 6 R's, which define, what is the best way, which will help you. That's a framework, you can call it a standard, which will help you to judge what is that I need to go with, whether it is a rehost or a reimage and different solutions you have, right? So we will be using Azure provided migration tools, which we call it as Azure Site Recovery Management, and then we'll see how do we migrate from on-prem, where we will use our virtual ESXi environment to migrate our VMs from our VMware environment to the cloud. So that will be covered.
Okay.
Right? That will be covered. And then I'll give you an introduction to the other tools as well. There are some other tools, not necessarily the inbuilt tools like.
So which is the most commonly used the tool for like I'm a pure SQL Server DBA guy. So which is the best tool to migrate the on-prem SQL database to the Azure?
Now, on-prem SQL database, there are database migration tool within the Azure itself that can be used. Most of the organizations will use only Azure Resource Recovery Site Recovery Manager. If you are using this tool across multiple cloud, then they go with something called as Zerto, and you have some Rackspace tools, and there are some other third-party tools as well, which gives advantage when compared to the inbuilt Microsoft tool, but what we use most of the times is inbuilt tool itself. We'll also discuss what are the other tools, but I'm not sure I will be able to cover them. If time permits, we will see one tool if possible, or at least we will try to understand how it is different from the inbuilt Azure tool, the encryption level that which you get when you migrate the data, right? So can we do a replication on changes, like a point in time replication, right? If you change a file and there is a migration happening, will it replicate only that level of data, or it will replicate? And there are advantages using the other tools as well. We'll see Azure Site Recovery and Migration tool, and we'll also try to understand a couple of other tools in that part.
Okay, thanks.
So any other questions, guys?
Hi Vijay, actually I joined late. I missed your introduction. Uh,
Yeah, so I am infrastructure guy, which means that I worked on server administration, Windows, VMware, and I am after that I am into the application virtualization, which is a Citrix, Xenap, Zen Desktop, and NetScalers. That was my initial what do you call it as experience, and from last 3 years I moved into an infrastructure architect role, where present role is architecting the solutions using Azure and migrating the workloads and other stuff. That's in brief about myself. So around 10 plus years of experience.
Thank you, Vijay.
Okay, guys, if we don't have any further questions, we are done for this session. Thanks for joining, and I wish you have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vijay. Thanks for session.
Thank you.
I think it's a very nice session.
Thank you,
And
guys.
I've understood a lot of things.
No worries.
So, okay, we'll catch up.